Go-Wei Butsao secretly heaved a sigh of relief when it saw that Yun Chujo was silent. It continued to eat the herbs. Speaking of which, it had been a long time since it had eaten so freely. It felt so good. Go-Wei Butsao thought about it. Although it did not need to eat, its body still needed to eat. Otherwise, if it starved to death, it would have no place to live. Thus, it lazily said, "Come in." Hong Ling entered the house and couldn't help but be stunned. Because the originally full medicinal herbs were already less than half gone. What was going on? However, Hong Ling knew her identity, so she didn't ask what she shouldn't ask. Therefore, she didn't say anything and instead placed the food on the table. Yun Chujo said to Go-Wei Butsao, "Tell Hong Ling to prepare a bath water and clean clothes. Ask her to help you bathe. When the time comes, go back to your dantian and wait for the bath before you possess your body." Go-Wei Butsao agreed and pursed her lips in her heart. Bah! Even if you let the baby see it, the baby would not even bother to look at it. It was so ugly. It could not even be compared to Xiao Mogus mycelium. Hong Ling was stunned when she heard Go-Wei Bukao's instructions. This was because Yun Chujo usually did not need them to help her take a bath. However, since her master had instructed her, she could only do as she was told. Thus, after Go-Wei Butsao finished eating, Hong Ling began to help her take a bath. In order to avoid Hong Ling's suspicion, Yun Chujo let Go-Wei Butsao say, "I'll take a nap for a while. Help me wash up, then help me change my clothes. After that, just put me on the bed." After Hong Ling nodded and agreed, Go-Wei Butsao retracted back into her dantian and allowed Hong Ling to manipulate Yun Chujo's body. I think you should take a look at. Although Hong Ling was very puzzled, she still helped Yun Chujo to bathe, changed into clean clothes, and then put her on the bed. During this time, she felt that her miss did not breathe at all and was so scared that her face was pale. However, she knew that her miss was a pervert and had many secrets. Therefore, although she was shocked, she did not dare to ask anything. Yun Chujo watched Hong Ling leave and nodded. This Hong Ling was not bad. If there was a chance, she could help her increase her strength. After a while, Go-Wei Butsao felt that it should be done washing. It could not wait to possess her body again and began to eat the herbs. Yun Chujo could not be bothered with it. Just as she was thinking about the matter, Hong Ling knocked on the door again and said carefully, "Miss, housekeeper Su from the ancestral residence is here. He said that the ancestor invited you over." Hong Ling knew that her miss was angry when she woke up, so she was so careful. Yun Chuji's heart tightened. What should come will come. She had to think of a way to fool the old fox. "Tell housekeeper Su that I'll be there soon." After Hong Ling left, Yun Chujo said to Go-Wei Butsao, "The old fox is very cunning. You have to do exactly as I told you. Otherwise, I won't be able to recover, and neither will you." Although Go-Wei Butsao was mischievous, it also knew the severity of the situation. It immediately nodded and said, "Don't worry. Although I can't compare to you in acting, I can still put on an act." Yun Chujo immediately instructed Go-Wei Ba, then, she said, "Everything else is fine. The main thing is the way you walk. Remember, you're a human now, not a grass. Don't throw your arms out for no reason. Those aren't your grass leaves." Go-Wei Butsao agreed and pursed his lips in his heart. Humans were so pitiful. They only had 2 arms and 2 legs. The grass was still more powerful. They could have as many leaves as they wanted. Go-Wei Butsao waited for Yun Chujo to finish her instructions before pushing the door open and leaving the house. "Hong Ling, prepare the soft couch and send me to the ancestral residence," Go-Wei Butsao instructed. Hong Ling immediately sent someone to prepare the soft couch. The soft couch was carried outside the Lan family's ancestral residence. Go-Wei Butsao then rolled down the soft couch. Go-Wei Butsao realized that it had made a mistake. It revealed an embarrassed but polite smile and said, "Sigh, my body is too weak. I accidentally fell down. Hong Ling, why didn't you help me just now?" Hong Ling, "Hey Shinjo." After saying that, Go-Wei Butsao imitated Yun Chujia's usual way of walking and walked into the courtyard. Although it felt very awkward, it had to bear with it in order not to expose itself. Hong Ling looked at her young Miss back view and had an illusion in her heart. Her young Miss legs were newly grown, right? Otherwise, why did she feel that her walking posture was so stiff? It did not seem as natural as before when she swung her arm and walked away. Yun Chuzhou simply could not bear to look at it. She could only follow and drift into the Lan family's ancestors' study. Pandas novel. Calm Yun Chuzhou looked at her flattering manner and could not help but shiver. Was she usually this cheap? The Lan family ancestor shook his head speechlessly and pointed to the chair beside him. Sit. I think you should take a look at Go-Wei Butsao subconsciously shook his right arm. After hearing Yun Chujia's cough, he touched his bald ladle stiffly and laughed dryly before sitting on the chair. The Lan family's ancestor did not suspect anything. He thought that she was a little embarrassed because her hair had been chopped off. Go-Wei Butsao recalled Yun Chujia's previous instructions and quickly said, Ancestor, I was struck a little severely this time. My spiritual power has been temporarily sealed, and my body is very weak. I think I need to rest for a few days. The Lan family's ancestor's spy had already reported Yun Chujia's actions to him. After hearing Yun Chujia's words, he did not suspect anything. Because he thought that the reason Go-Wei Butsao bought so many medicinal herbs was probably to refine medicinal pills to treat his injuries. He asked a few questions with concern and then said, although the Qing family's matter has come to an end temporarily, I have a premonition that a storm is coming. I'm afraid that the other three families, the Bitter Zen sect, and the Divine Devil Hall will attack again soon. Go-Wei Ba followed Yun Chujia's instructions and said, Ancestor, you don't have to worry too much. We still have the Zen sect behind us. Even if we really meet them, we are not afraid of them. The ancestor nodded and the two chatted for a while. Then, the ancestor said, since you are not well, you should go back early. Nothing is more important than getting well. Go-Wei Butsao did not want to put on an act anymore. When she heard that, she jumped up from the chair, swung her arms, and jumped out of the house. Yun Chuzhou was so angry that her nose almost went crooked. However, there was nothing she could do. Fortunately, most people would not think that there was a new core in her shell, so the old fox should not suspect anything. Yun Chuzhou originally wanted to stay here and see what the old ancestor would do, but she was sucked to Go-Wei Butsao side by a huge suction force. It seemed that she couldn't be too far away from her body. Sigh, what was going on? It was too terrible. After Yun Chuzhou left, an old man wearing a mask came out from behind the screen of the study. Master, why do I feel that the girl's behavior is a bit strange? The masked old man said with some doubt. The Lan family's patriarch shook his head. It's probably the sequela of being struck by lightning. After her injuries recover, she should be back to normal. The reason why the Lan family's ancestor did not have any doubts was that, firstly, he would never have thought that Yun Chujia's core had changed. Secondly, the tone and content of Yun Chujia's conversation with him were very normal. It was just that the way she walked and her behavior was a little strange. The masked elder nodded. What you said makes sense. The heavenly lightning was as thick as a millstone. It's already a miracle that she was able to survive. It's also normal for her to be injured. The Lan family's ancestor smiled. That troublemaker has always been different from ordinary people. If it wasn't for her intelligence, the Qing family's matter this time wouldn't have gone so smoothly. I still feel that it's unbelievable. I thought that we would have to go through a lot of trouble, but who would have thought that it would be resolved so easily? The elder smiled. Congratulations, Master. With the support of the Qing family of the Fog Valley, our Lan family's strength will increase by a lot. However, Master, if Yun Chujia's injuries cannot be recovered, what should we do about that matter? The Lan family's ancestor knocked on the table with his finger. After a moment of silence, he said, it's still early. That troublemaker knows how to refine pills herself. There shouldn't be any big problems. If it really doesn't work, we can think of another way. I now feel that she is more suitable than Luo Chen. Although Luo Chen is also very intelligent and her cultivation level is higher than that troublemaker, she lacks flexibility and may not be able to succeed. What you said makes sense. However, will you tell her the truth? After all, that little girl's mind is very clear. You may not be able to deceive her. The masked elder probed. The Lan family's ancestor let out a long breath. I'll think about it again. In any case, we still have time. I think you should take a look at on the other side. Goei Butsao sat on the soft couch and returned to the third room of the Lan family. Just as he entered the courtyard, he saw Lan Luofang ask with concern, "Little Jiu, are you all right? I just finished my class. Otherwise, I would have come to see you long ago." Goei Butsao followed Yun Chujia's instructions and said while covering his forehead, "Sister Luofang, my head hurts a little. I want to go in and lie down for a while. I'll look for you another day." Lan Luofang did not suspect him and quickly said, "Then quickly go in and lie down for a while. I'll get the kitchen to make some nourishing soup for you." Goei Butsao nodded and imitated Yun Chujia's walking posture into the house. Lan Luofang looked at Yun Chujia's difficult steps and was even more convinced that she was injured. She could not help but worry for her and left with a worried expression. For the next 2 days, Goei Butsao lived a very happy life. After eating all the herbs, this guy shamelessly went straight to Lan Luofang and asked her to help him buy more herbs. He said that he wanted to refine pills. Lan Luofang did not doubt him and immediately went to the pharmacy to buy a lot of herbs. He Xinjiu was so angry that she was about to puke. But she could not do anything about Goei Butsao. Goei Butsao was very proud of itself. It wished that it could live like this forever. It was simply too beautiful. That night, it was already midnight, and Goei Butsao hadn't slept yet. This fellow was nibbling on the herbs while reading. The script was simply wonderful. Panda's novel come at this moment, there was a knock on the door. "Little Jiu, open the door." Goei Butsao heard the cold voice and rolled down from the bed in fright. It was over. That jinx was here. Goei Butsao was trembling like a fallen leaf in the wind. Why did this fiend suddenly come here? What should he do? If that fiend knew that it had been whipping the stinky girl in anger for the past few days, would he directly turn her into a specimen? Otherwise, he might as well go back to his dantian. After all, he had no way to communicate with the stinky girl's primordial spirit and would not know about his own matters. However, it thought about it again. If that was the case, Di Baiming would definitely be worried about Yun Chujia's body and would stay behind. If that was the case, how would it come out to eat the herbs? How would it come out to read the script? Goei Butsao rolled its eyes. Its body was now the wretched girl's and it was also familiar with the matters between them. It might as well fool him and make him leave quickly so that it could continue to act arrogantly. However, what if it was discovered by that jinx? This fellow gritted its teeth and comforted itself. As long as it was a little more careful, that jinx would definitely not discover it. After all, it would not have thought that its body would be taken over by Go Weiba tail. Thinking of this, Goei Butsao swaggered to the door and opened it. He Xinjiu, who was floating, saw through Goei Bukao's intentions at a glance. She sneered in her heart. This idiot was looking down on the pretty boy too much. Since it was seeking its own death, she would definitely not stop it. After the door opened, Goei Butsao saw Di Baiming standing at the door. Under the moonlight, Di Baiming's entire body was covered in a silver halo. His eyes were filled with worry. In the past few days, the sound transmission talisman that he sent to Yun Chujiu had not been successful. In addition, he felt inexplicably uneasy, so he hurried over. Goei Butsao did not dare to look into Di Baiming's eyes. Mimicking Yun Chujiu's usual manner, he said, "Prince Charming, why are you here?" "I think you should take a look at." Di Baiming looked at the house full of herbs and felt a little puzzled. Why did little Jiu take out all these herbs? Why didn't she put them into her storage ring? He suppressed the doubts in his heart and asked, I have been unable to successfully send you the sound transmission talisman these days. What happened? Go-Wei Batsao had already run back to the bed and hid under the blanket, only revealing his head. This was because he knew that when he was agitated, he would wave his arms and hide under the blanket so that he would not be exposed. Di Baiming frowned slightly, but he did not think too much about it. He thought that Yun Chuzhou could not wait to hide under the blanket because it was late at night and it was a little cold. Panda's novel, Calm, I was struck a few days ago and my spiritual power was blocked, so I was unable to receive your voice transmission talisman. Go-Wei Batsao said. Di Baiming immediately lifted the blanket when he heard that. He wanted to check Yun Chuzhou's pulse to see how badly injured she was. Go-Wei Batsao thought that it had been exposed and was so scared that it trembled. When Di Baiming saw it like this, he was even more confused, but he did not show it. Di Baiming placed his hand on Go-Wei Bacao's wrist. Although not everyone who cultivated knew how to refine pills, they still knew how to do basic diagnostic tests. When Di Baiming saw that there was nothing wrong with Go-Wei Bacao's meridians, he was slightly relieved. If it was just spiritual power being sealed, it would return to normal in a few days. No wonder Little Nine had piled up all the herbs in the house. So that was the reason. Go-Wei Batsao had the principle of saying more and saying less, but seeing that Di Baiming did not speak, it did not dare to speak either. Hei Xinjiu, who was floating in the air, could not help but feel a little stifled. This idiot gigolo, would he really let Go-Wei Batsao fool him? At this time, Di Baiming quietly sized up Go-Wei Batsao. He was even more confused. Little Nine was usually lively and active, but why was it so quiet today? Go-Wei Batsao saw Di Baiming's gaze fall on it from time to time, and it shivered again. It didn't dare to look at Di Baiming, afraid that it would be exposed. Di Baiming suppressed the doubt in his heart and said, Little Jiu, tell me about what happened recently. Go-Wei Batsao said a few words perfunctorily, and then said, It's already so late. It's better to rest first. If there's anything, we can talk about it tomorrow. Di Baiming's eyes deepened and said, Little Jiu, look at me. I have something important to tell you. Go-Wei Batsao hummed and said, My head hurts. Tell me. I'm listening. Di Baiming tightened his grip and pulled Go-Wei Batsao out of the blanket. Then, he made Go-Wei Batsao look at him. Go-Wei Batsao did not expect Di Baiming to be so rude. He subconsciously waved his arm, wanting to send Di Baiming flying. However, it was not grass now, and it did not have any spiritual power. It did not hurt at all when it hit Di Baiming's body. When Di Baiming saw its actions, his eyes suddenly turned cold. You are Go-Wei Ba. Where is little Jiu? Go-Wei Batsao did not expect to be exposed in less than 10 minutes. It wanted to cry but had no tears. It wanted to deny it, but when it saw Di Baiming's cold eyes, it did not dare. This fellow broke free from Di Baiming's hand and knelt on the ground with a plop. Male god, no, great god, it was the little fairy who let me possess her. She was struck by lightning and her primordial spirit left her body. She was afraid that the Lan family's ancestor would abandon her after finding out, so she let me possess her. I was just following orders. She is floating here now. If you don't believe me, you can ask her yourself. I think you should take a look at this point. Go-Wei Batsao felt a little more confident. That's right. This fiend had no way to communicate with that stinky girl at all. Whatever it said, it would do. What was there to be afraid of? Hei Xinjiu, who was floating, was gratified that Di Baiming had seen through Go-Wei Batsao. On the other hand, she felt a little frustrated when she saw herself kneeling in front of Di Baiming. Although Di Baiming had some guesses in his heart, he was still shocked. Little Jiu's primordial spirit had left her body. He stared at Go-Wei Batsao and asked, Is what you said true? Didn't you hurt little Jiu? Go-Wei Batsao saw his cold eyes and shivered. She quickly said, It's true. It's all true. I have turned from the dark to the light and turned over a new leaf. The little fairy and I are one. If anything happens to her, I won't be able to recover. Why would I harm her? What? Panda's novel, Kamgwe Batsao had the urge to return to its dantian and play dead. But for some reason, although it knew that Di Biming couldn't do anything to it, it was just afraid. Woo-woo, it was a world-shaking powerhouse. Why would it be afraid of this fiend? What the hell? After a moment, Di Biming finally spoke slowly. Since you said that little Jiu was possessed by you, then ask her what her name will be when she gives birth to a son in the future. Although Gowei Batsao was telepathically connected to Yun Chuzhou and Di Biming would cut off their spiritual sense most of the time. Only when she scolded it would she open the spiritual sense connection. Therefore, Gowei Batsao naturally did not know the answer to this question. It raised its head to look at Yun Chuzhou, only to see that Yun Chuzhou had no intention of telling it at all. Moreover, the corner of her mouth revealed a sinister smile. Its head buzzed. This stinky girl was obviously going to trick it. Gowei Batsao regretted it. If it had known earlier, it would not have acted like a demon. What should it do now? If that wretched girl did not tell it the answer, Di Biming, this fiend, would definitely think that it was lying and would not let it off. As expected, Guai Chao felt colder and colder. The cold air on Di Biming's body almost froze it into ice. Di Biming's cold voice rang out, "Are you lying to me?" Gowei Batsao looked at He Xinjiu who was floating in the air and asked for help. He Xinjiu looked at it with a smile but did not say anything. Gowei Batsao was so angry that it was twitching. No wonder the stupid girl did not say a word when she saw it acting like a demon. It turned out that she was holding back a big move. It was too sinister. Gowei Batsao had no choice but to tell the truth while trembling. God, I was wrong. I made the little fairy angry, so she deliberately pranked me and did not tell me the answer. I swear, I won't dare to do it again in the future. Oh. How did you provoke little Jiu? Di Biming asked in a deep voice he had already guessed a little. This house full of medicinal herbs was probably obtained by Gowei Batsao on his own initiative. Gowei Batsao cried, I didn't do anything. I just bought some medicinal herbs to eat. People's food is their priority. I can't possibly be hungry, right? Di Biming sneered. He probably bought a lot of these herbs. Otherwise, little Jiu wouldn't be so angry. Moreover, Gowei Batsao was getting bolder and bolder. Previously, it had kept a small treasury. Now that it had a chance to possess it, it would definitely be very proud. I think you should take a look at Gowei Batsao saw that a certain one was silent, so it could only look at He Xinjiu with a whimper, little fairy, I was wrong. Please spare me this time. I will definitely change in the future and never let anyone buy herbs for me again. Yun Chuzhou could not be bothered with it. The most important thing was to look at her crying face. It was too awkward. Alright, we will settle the score in the future. Ask him if there is a way for my primordial spirit to enter my body again. Gowei Batsao quickly repeated Yun Chuzhiu's words. Di Biming pondered for a moment and said, if it was in the past, I really wouldn't have any way. However, after I broke the seal this time and recovered some of my memories, I do have a way. Yun Chuzhou was immediately delighted. What solution? Of course, these words had to be relayed through Go Weiba. In order to gain a good impression of him, Go Weiba said obsequiously, the great deity is indeed powerful. He is simply incomparably wise. What is the solution? Yun Chuzhou, this scheming grass. Yun Chuzhou noticed that Di Biming frowned slightly. She knew that things were going to be difficult, so she asked, idol, is there something wrong? Go Weiba said flatteringly, Guru, little fairy asked if there is anything wrong with you. That place called the Sea of Clouds was originally an ownerless place. But now, it is occupied by the Bitter Zen sect. So, you have to find a way to get the Bitter Zen sect to agree to let you soak in the soul-fixing spring, or destroy the Bitter Zen sect, Di Biming said in a deep voice. Yun Chujo had a headache when she heard that. The Zen sect and the Divine Devil Hall were on the same side. They would definitely not agree to let her soak in the soul-fixing spring. Destroy the Zen sect. It was not something that could be done in a day or two. If time dragged on, what would happen if her primordial spirit scattered? Although Di Baiming's cultivation base was high, it was not a problem for him to enter the Zen sect by himself. However, he could not let her soak in the soul-fixing spring without anyone noticing. Di Baiming also frowned deeply. If he did not have the Divine Devil Hall, he and the Zen sect could destroy the bitter Zen sect together. However, the bad thing was that the Divine Devil Hall was behind the bitter Zen sect. If they tried to force it, even if they could win in the end, it would take a long time. Is it effective to get some water from the soul-fixing spring? Yun Chujo asked through Goei Batsao. Di Baiming shook his head. No, once the water from the spring leaves the pool, it will lose its effect. You have to soak in the spring. Di Baiming and Yun Chujo could not think of any good ideas. Yun Chujo said, Prince Charming, it's getting late. Go to bed first. It's not too late anyway. Di Baiming was fine, but he was afraid that something would happen to Yun Chujia's body, so he nodded immediately. However, he thought of a crucial problem at this time. Goei Batsao felt a chill and shivered. What was wrong with this fiend? Di Baiming stared at Goei Batsao. I ask you, how did you do things like bathing and changing clothes? Goei Batsao immediately felt that things were not looking good. This fiend had overturned the pot of vinegar. It quickly said in fear and trepidation, God, don't worry. Hong Ling helped me do all these things. At that time, I will hide back in my dantian. The little fairy will cut off my spiritual sense. I won't be able to see anything. Di Baiming's coldness faded a little, but his expression was still a little ugly. He said coldly to Goei Batsao, unless it's necessary, you will stay in your dantian. Don't come out and be an eyesore. Goei Batsao was so angry. I think you should take a look at what was an eyesore. It was clearly that smelly girl who let it out, alright? If it wasn't for Goei Bakao's emergency, that smelly girl would still be running around in the pit. Humph. Of course, this fellow would never say this matter even if he was beaten to death, because he was afraid of death. Yes. It agreed with a grievance, and then hid back in its dantian. Di Baiming knew that Yun Chujo was definitely not far from him, and he said gently, Little Jiu, don't worry, there will definitely be a way. As Yun Chujo had not cut off the spiritual sense connection, Guai Chao also heard a certain respected figure's words, and he cursed in his heart, Pui. The change in expression was really fast. When facing it, it was like a cold wind sweeping away fallen leaves, and when facing the smelly girl, it was like a spring breeze warming up. It was really like watching a person leave a dish. Humph. Without it to pass on the message, how would they communicate? In the end, they would still have to beg Go Weiba to go out and help. Unfortunately, Goei Batsao was mistaken. Di Baiming comforted Yun Chujo a few times, but did not have any intention of summoning her out. Pandus novel Kamaltho Di Baiming could not see Yun Chujo, he somehow knew that Yun Chujo was floating above his palm. He lowered his head to kiss her and said slowly, Don't be afraid, I will accompany you. Hearing his words, Yun Chujo broke into tears. Of course she was afraid. Anyone would be afraid when their primordial spirit left their body, and she was no exception. But, who could she tell? If she told Goei Batsao, that idiot would definitely laugh at her. Goei Batsao in her dantian looked at Hei Shinjo who was grinning and shook its leaves. It was so ugly. Although Di Baiming could not see Yun Chujo crying, he could guess it. His heart ached and he had to think of a way as soon as possible. That night, Di Baiming, Yun Chujo, and Goei Batsao did not sleep at all. Di Baiming had been thinking about how to let Yun Chujo go to the soul consolidation spring for treatment, so he did not sleep. Yun Chujo could not sleep because she was in her primordial spirit state. As for Goei Batsao, it usually did not sleep much. Moreover, it was worried that Di Baiming would take care of it, so it could not sleep. The next morning, although Di Baiming was unwilling, he still asked Yun Chuzhou to summon Gowei Batsao to possess it. After all, without it to pass the message, he could not communicate with Yun Chuzhou. As for Lu Luo and Kai Yun, they would just faint first. The reason was very simple. Although the two of them were loyal to her, they were not as smart as Hong Ling. It was better not to let them know. Although Hong Ling saw Di Baiming after she woke up, she did not ask anything. She just obediently stood guard in the courtyard. Di Baiming took out breakfast from his storage ring and let Gowei Batsao eat it. Of course, he didn't want Gowei Batsao to eat it, but he wanted Yun Chuzhi's body to eat it. Gowei Batsao was about to grab the food with his hands, but when he saw Di Baiming's cold gaze, he could only force himself to pick up a pair of chopsticks. This fellow had always used his hands to grab the food, how would he know how to use chopsticks? I think you should take a look at therefore, this meal was extremely miserable. It took him almost 2 hours to finish it, and he even dirted his clothes. A certain being glanced at the drooping Gowei Batsao and said, "Go back to your dantian." Little Jiu, cut off its spiritual connection. Gowei Batsao immediately understood that it wanted Hong Ling to change Yun Chuzhou's clothes, so it obediently went back to its dantian. Yun Chuzhou thought the same, so she quickly cut off Gowei Bacao's spiritual connection. However, she never expected that Di Baiming did call Hong Ling over, but he only asked for a clean set of clothes from her and sent Hong Ling away. Then, she was stunned to see a certain someone start to remove her clothes with a red face. He Xinzhou was both embarrassed and angry, this pervert. He actually took advantage of her when she was in danger. How outrageous. In a moment of desperation, this guy raised his hand and slapped Di Baiming. Pa! A crisp sound was heard. Both Di Baiming and He Xinzhou were stunned. Yun Chuzhou was dumbfounded when she saw the slap mark on Di Baiming's face. Did she really hit him just now? Wasn't she at the immortal soul stage now? How did she do it? Ignoring the pain on his face, a certain deity said in surprise, Little Jiu, did you hit me? Hit me again. He Xinzhou, was this pretty boy a masochist? Of course, the certain someone was not a masochist, but he felt that he was hallucinating. Little Jiu was now in her primordial spirit state, so how did she slap him? Yun Chuzhou did not know how she did it, but she did it out of desperation. Chapter 5306, I despise myself. She suddenly remembered that when she was trapped under the ghost city in the desert of death, her primordial spirit had left her body. Later, she tried to use her spiritual sense to attack, and that was how she got out of the predicament. Could it be that she had unintentionally used her spiritual sense to attack? If she could skillfully use her spiritual sense to attack, could it be that not only could she attack, but she could also write? The more Yun Chuzhou thought about it, the more excited she became. She immediately summoned the Gowei Batsao and said to it, "Prepare a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone for me. I want to try using my primordial spirit to write." Gowei Batsao did not know what had just happened, but when it saw the palm print on Di Baiming's face, it could not help but laugh out loud. This fellow also finished laughing. It also knew that it was going to suffer. As expected, Di Baiming's cold gaze immediately landed on its body. It could even feel that the gaze pierced through Yun Chuzhi's body, directly landing on its main body. This fellow came up with an idea in a hurry. It stammered as it explained, "Great God, don't misunderstand, I am not laughing at you, I am happy for the little fairy." If she had mastered the divine sense attack, she would have an additional life-saving method. Think about it, if she meets an especially powerful enemy, the little fairy can let me possess her body and then she can use her primordial spirit to launch a sneak attack. This is simply a sharp weapon to kill people and steal their treasures. After listening to Go Weibao's words, Di Baiming did not have time to say anything before He Xinzhou became excited. That's right. Go Weibao's words made sense. If she could really master the spiritual sense attack, she would be able to openly attack in the future. No one would be able to discover her, ha ha ha. This fellow suddenly thought of a question. Previously, she had killed some demons or monsters, and the primordial spirit of those things could be seen by others. Why was it that other than Go Wei Batsao, her primordial spirit, no one else could see it? Yun Chujiu mentioned her question, but Di Baiming did not answer her immediately because he had discovered this question a long time ago. Whether it was a human or a devil, the primordial spirit was a miniature version of itself. Once the primordial spirit left the body, everyone could see it. In fact, he had seen Yun Chujiu's primordial spirit before. It was in the passage to the ghost realm. Little Jiu, maybe it's because you are the ghost ancestor. Di Baiming guessed. Go Wei Bakao's eyes flashed. It knew the reason, but it did not tell them. HMPH, did it think that Go Wei Ba was easy to bully? It knew many things, but it did not tell them. Yun Chujiu quickly threw this question to the back of her mind. She asked Di Baiming to take out a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. This guy began to practice writing with his primordial spirit. Things were simple, but it was not so easy to operate. 4 hours had passed. Not to mention writing, she could not even touch the xian paper. Hei Xinjiu could not help but feel a little depressed. Moreover, she felt very tired after all this, so she could only give up temporarily. Go Wei Batsao cursed in her heart, bah. Previously, she had laughed at it for being a bad student. Now, she was no better than it, even dumber than it. Just like Go Wei Batsao, it could easily turn into a spiritual power clone. What an amazing ability. How could it be like this wretched girl who couldn't even learn spiritual sense attacks? She was even dumber than a pig. Go Wei Batsao thought so in his heart, and a look of disdain appeared on his face. After seeing it, Di Baiming immediately said coldly, Go Wei Batsao, what are you thinking about? Go Wei Batsao immediately trembled, no, nothing. I despise myself. I made the little fairy angry. I'm too unworthy. I'm simply not worthy to be a grass. Although Di Baiming didn't know what Go Wei Batsao was thinking, he could guess it. This Go Wei Batsao was different from Little Nine's other spiritual pets. To a certain extent, Little Nine was completely controlled by it. Even though his memory had been unsealed a lot, there was still no record of it. What the hell was this thing? Go Wei Batsao saw Di Baiming's cold gaze and shivered again. This fellow was scolding himself, you useless fool. What was there to be afraid of? He couldn't cripple the smelly girl's dantian. What was there to be afraid of? This fellow encouraged himself and finally calmed down a little. However, he still didn't dare to say anything and sneakily stood in the corner, pretending to be a mushroom. Di Baiming could not be bothered with it. He would let it prance around for a few days first. When he found out its weakness, it would not be too late to deal with it. At this moment, Hung Ling knocked on the door. Miss, housekeeper Su from the ancestral residence is here. He said that the old ancestor wants you to go over for a while. Go Wei Batsao followed Yun Chujiu's instructions and quickly said, got it. He said that I will go over right away. Yun Chujiu was puzzled. The old fox clearly knew that her spiritual power was sealed, so why did he ask her to go over? She asked Go Wei Batsao to tell Di Baiming to wait here. She and Go Wei Batsao went to the ancestral house to see what the old ancestor of the Lan family was selling. Go Wei Batsao still sat on the soft couch and went to the ancestral house. The first time was new, and the second time was familiar. Go Wei Bakao's performance this time was much better than the last time. Panda's novel's Kamian Chujia's heart moved. Master Liaowu would not look for her for no reason. It was most likely related to the matter of her pretending to be a Buddha. Otherwise, she would have told the old fox. It was good to go there. She could take the opportunity to inquire about the Bitter Zen sect. I think you should take a look at therefore, she said, since Master Liaowu has invited me, I will go and take a look. You can send a message to ask them to send someone to pick me up. Master Lan nodded and immediately sent a message to Master Liaowu. Soon, the other side gave a definite answer and immediately sent someone to pick Yun Chujiu up. The old ancestor of the Lan family had some doubts in his heart. The Zen sect was too eager to deal with this troublemaker. Was it because of the Buddha's candle? Or was there some secret between them that he did not know? However, no matter what, it was a good thing for the Lan family that the troublemaker had a good relationship with the Zen sect. As for the other things, he would find out sooner or later. Yun Chujo found a reason to leave so that the fake Goei Batsao would not be exposed. After Goei Batsao saw Di Baiming, he told him the story in a flattering manner. Di Baiming frowned slightly. Little Jiu, are you really going to the Zen sect? You don't have any spiritual power now, and your primordial spirit has left your body. It's too dangerous. It's okay. Those monks from the Zen sect won't harm me. If I go, I can also get some information about the bitter Zen sect. Yun Chujo told Goei Batsao to tell him. Di Baiming still felt that something was wrong, so he said, all right, since you insist on going, I'll go with you. Yun Chujo did not refuse. She really needed someone to protect her in her current state. Now that the situation was becoming clear, she was not afraid that Di Baiming would bring any trouble. Moreover, the Zen sect was not on good terms with the Divine Devil Hall. For days later, Yun Chujo followed the Zen sect to the Zen sect. Di Baiming did not go with Yun Chujo. Instead, he was secretly protecting her. The people who came to pick up Yun Chujo from the Zen sect this time were still Master Lei, Ji Kong, and Ji Su. Along the way, Master Lei's eyes were fixed on Yun Chujo vaguely, with a vague intention of probing. Goei Batsao was a little scared by his gaze. He found an excuse to stay in the cabin and did not go out. He said to Hei Shinjo, the old monk looked at the baby strangely. Did he notice something? Yun Chujo thought for a moment and said, it's possible, but it might not be a bad thing. Maybe he has a solution. Let's wait until we get to the Zen sect. On this day, the flying spiritual device finally arrived at the Zen sect. Once they arrived at the Zen sect, Yun Chujo was surrounded by many monks. Di Baiming, who was hiding in the dark, was about to make a move when he heard Goei Batsao say, Master Li, what do you mean by this? Amitba, Buddha's candle, did you possess almsgiver Yun's body? Hurry up and return almsgiver Yun's freedom. Master Li shouted sternly. Yun Chujo, this was a wonderful misunderstanding. However, this gave her a good excuse. Thus, she commanded Goei Batsao and said to Master Li, let's talk in private. Master Li frowned, but he still led Goei Batsao to his meditation room. Goei Batsao followed Yun Chuji's instructions and said, Master Li, you are right. I am Buddha's candle. I have occupied the little fairy's body. Goei Batsao was secretly delighted. Ha, that's great. With Buddha's candle as a scapegoat, it would be scapegoated even if it did some bad things in the future. I think you should take a look at Master Li shouted angrily, what did you do to benefactor Yun? Why aren't you returning her body to her? Master, please calm down. I have taken over her body passively. After she was struck by the heavenly lightning, her primordial spirit left her body. If I don't possess her body will be destroyed. Look, she is floating here now. Goei Batsao pointed at a place beside Master Lei. Master Lei did not believe Goei Bakeo's story at all. No matter how Goei Batsao explained, he was sure that it had possessed Yun Chujo with ill intentions. Panda's novels come in the end, it was Yun Chujo who told a few things that the Buddha's candle did not know. It was only after Master Lei believed Goei Bakeo's story. Only then did the two begin to talk through Goei Batsao. Master Lei, I heard that the bitter Zen sect has a soul-fixing spring that can treat the condition of the primordial spirit leaving the body. Is that true? It is true. However, the soul-fixing spring is a precious treasure of the bitter Zen sect. If you want to go there for treatment, I'm afraid it will be as difficult as ascending to the heavens, Master Lei sighed. Yun Chujo heaved a sigh of relief when she received the affirmative answer. As for whether it was difficult or not, it was up to the man to do it. She would definitely think of a way. By the way, why did you and Master Liaowu ask me to come to the Zen sect? Master Lui revealed a worried expression. The bitter Zen sect did not succeed in the last 10,000 Buddhist Dharma assembly. A few days ago, they sent someone to send a post saying that there was a magnificent scene of the Sea of Clouds Buddhist light in the bitter Zen sect. They invited us over to enjoy it. It really put us in a dilemma. Yun Chuzhou said with puzzlement, what's so difficult about that? If you want to go, then go. If you don't want to go, then don't go. Master Lui explained, the Buddhist light of the Sea of Clouds is a grand scene that Buddhists dream of. If we refuse, the bitter Zen sect will definitely add oil to the fire and spread it out, saying that we are not sincere in cultivating Buddhism. Master Lui sighed and continued, moreover, they also promised us that we could copy the ancient Buddhist scriptures that the bitter Zen sect took away when we went there. This is really an irresistible temptation. However, we also know that the bitter Zen sect doesn't have good intentions, so we are in a dilemma. The sect master took you over because he wanted to ask you what advice you have on this. Yun Chuzhou was so smart. She immediately understood what Master Lui and the others were thinking. They wanted to go to the bitter Zen sect, but they were afraid of death, so they wanted her to go with them. After all, she had performed very well at the 10,000 Buddha Dharma assembly, which made them have confidence in her. Master Lui and the others had indeed planned to do so, but Master Lui's heart was now half cold. Yun Chujia's primordial spirit could not protect herself if it left her body. It was useless to bring her along. She was a burden. Yun Chujia's heart was moved. She was worried that she would not be able to enter the bitter Zen sect, but this was such a good opportunity. No matter what, once she entered the bitter Zen sect, she would have a chance to get close to the soul consolidation spring. She could not give up this opportunity no matter what. Therefore, she said, Master Lui, I see that you actually want to go and take a look. Then go and take a look. As for the danger, we can transfer some of it to others. You should immediately invite the people from the 4 great families and the Zen sect to go together. When the people arrive at the bitter Zen sect will not be able to refuse. Master Lui's eyes immediately lit up. Although 3 of the 4 great families had colluded with the Divine Devil Hall, they were not on good terms with each other. If used properly, the situation could be completely messed up. Immediately, Master Lui brought Yun Chuzhou to see Master Liaowu. Pandas novel. Calm Master Lui told Master Liaowu about the matter. After a moment of silence, Master Liaowu said, all right, let's do as she says. The reason why Master Liaowu was so happy was that they really wanted to go to the bitter Zen sect. Whether it was the Buddhist light of the Sea of Clouds or those ancient Buddhist scriptures, they were too attracted to them. However, there was a thorny problem in front of them. What identity did this troublemaker have to follow them? Yun Chuzhou or the lonely little monk? Amitabha. Master, I am your disciple. Naturally, I have to follow you as a lonely person, Yun Chuzhou said through Goeibatsao. Master Liaowu also felt that it was safer to bring this fellow with him. However, how could he solve this problem with his appearance, gender, and Buddhist power? Appearance was easy to solve. Although Yun Chuzhou could not open the storage ring, Di Baiming's storage ring contained a disguise pill. In the end, Master Liaowu took out a ring with a pained expression and said, this heavenly phoenix ring can be used without spiritual power activation. Goeibatsao had received He Xinjia's true inheritance. Before Master Liaowu could finish his words, this guy snatched the ring away. The issue of appearance and gender had been resolved. As for the Buddha power, no one could think of any solution. Yun Chuzhou said, how about saying that there was a mistake during the breakthrough, so the Buddha power was sealed? No one had any other choice but to agree. He Xinjiu thought for a while. She reckoned that the old fox of the Lan family would find out about it this time. After all, there was no such coincidence. It didn't matter if they found out about it. Yun Chuzhou was still placed in the wooden house near the Spring of Tranquility. As soon as she returned to the wooden house, she saw Di Baiming. Goeibatsao hastily recounted what had happened. Di Baiming felt that this was a good idea. He might be able to enter the Spring of Tranquility for treatment with this opportunity. However, he did not expect Yun Chuzhou to let go Weiba recount, "Prince Charming, don't follow me to the bitter Zen sect." Di Baiming naturally didn't agree. She was now a weakling who was at the mercy of others. How could he not follow her? "Prince Charming, I naturally have a reason for doing this. The bitter Zen sect must have set a trap this time and wanted to harm Master Liaowu and the others. However, I have already asked Master Liaowu to bring the people from the 4 great families along. This way, the arrangements of the bitter Zen sect would definitely be disrupted. However, this is not enough. There is still a huge hidden danger, and that is the Divine Devil Hall. After you leave, think of a way to attract the attention of the Divine Devil Hall to you. Naturally, they will not care about the bitter Zen sect. I can also do things more conveniently," Yun Chuzhou explained. Although Di Baiming knew that what she said made sense, he was still worried. Gowei Butsao quickly expressed its loyalty. "Great God, don't worry. I, Gowei Butsao, will definitely protect the little fairy well. If it really doesn't work, I can still summon demonic beasts." Di Baiming glanced at it and thought, "It's because of you that I'm worried." In the end, Di Baiming still couldn't persuade Yun Chuzhou, so he could only agree. Before he left, Di Baiming said to Gowei Butsao coldly, "Let bygones be bygones. If you don't listen to little Jiao and act on your own, this venerable self will definitely make your life worse than death." Gowei Butsao trembled like a sieve. "Great God, don't worry. I will definitely listen to the little fairy. If the little fairy wants me to go east, I will definitely not go west. If the little fairy wants me to chase the chickens, I will definitely not beat the dogs." Di Baiming snorted and Gowei Butsao shut her mouth. Even though he was extremely reluctant, Di Baiming still gritted his teeth and left. He knew that what Yun Chuzhou said made sense. It was far more beneficial for him to attract the attention of the Divine Devil Hall than to stay here. Gowei Butsao saw that Di Baiming had quickly disappeared and immediately sat on the ground. Oh God! That fiend had finally left. It scared the baby to death. She had the dual identity of ghost ancestor and demon ancestor after all. Wasn't the pretty boy just a Shengzun? Why was Gowei Butsao so afraid of the pretty boy but not of her? Yun Chuzhou explained her question and Go Weiba rolled its eyes. Women, as expected, long hair and short knowledge. However, after saying that, Go Weiba seemed to feel that something was wrong. Ha, this stinky girl was now bald. It seemed that regardless of the length of her hair, women were short-sighted. Yun Chuzhou looked at its smug look and secretly gritted her teeth. Very well, Go Weiba, little Jiao will take revenge. 10 years is not too late. Let's wait and see. When the people from the 4 great families had arrived, Master Liaowu brought everyone to the Sea of Clouds. The heads of the 4 great families and Master Liaowu and the others were on the same spaceship. Everyone's gaze fell on the lonely little monk. The lonely little monk put his palms together. After saluting everyone, he silently retreated to the side. Master Liaowu sighed and said, "Alas, my disciple had a bad breakthrough a few days ago, and his Buddhist energy was sealed. Fortunately, he is simple-minded and not affected. That's why I brought him to admire the Buddhist light of the Sea of Clouds. Perhaps he can recover soon." Hearing this, the crowd suddenly came to a realization. They all had different thoughts. Some were sympathetic and some were gloating. However, the ancestor of the Lan family frowned. How could it be so coincidental? The spiritual power of that troublemaker had been sealed, and the Buddhist power of Lonesome had been sealed. Moreover, the Zen sect had hurriedly taken that troublemaker to the Zen sect. The conclusion was obvious. Could it be that the little monk Lonesome in front of them was that troublemaker? The more Ancestor Lan thought about it, the more suspicious he felt. However, it wasn't appropriate to ask at this time. He only looked at lonely little monk with a complicated expression. "Hey Shinjo, who was floating in the air, saw the look in Ancestor Land's eyes and knew that she had been exposed. However, this fellow was already mentally prepared and didn't take it to heart. She was afraid that Go-Wei Batsao would mess up Lonely Little Monk's character, so she made him sit cross-legged in meditation before rolling back to his dantian. In this way, Lonely Little Monk gave people a calm and unperturbed look. Seeing this, everyone sighed with admiration at the little lonely monk's good nature. He was actually so calm despite encountering such an unforeseen event. Go-Wei Batsao cursed in her heart. Of course, she was calm and tranquil. This smelly girl's body was as if it was dead. How could she not be calm? The Bitter Zen sect was located in the westernmost part of the Chongshao continent. Therefore, the flying spirit tool flew for nearly 10 days before they arrived at the Sea of Clouds. When Yun Chujiu saw the Sea of Clouds, she could not help but be shocked. The mist valley that she had seen before could not be compared to the Sea of Clouds in front of her. This Sea of Clouds was just like a fairyland. From afar, several halls of the Bitter Zen sect could be vaguely seen in the Sea of Clouds. They were somewhat similar to the floating layer of the Supreme City. While everyone was sighing, Xian Hui had already brought people to welcome them. Everyone, please forgive me for not welcoming you from afar. Senior brother Xian Ji is busy with other matters and cannot personally come to welcome you. Please do not take offense, Xian Hui said politely. Everyone also exchanged a few pleasantries and followed Xian Hui into the Sea of Clouds. When Xian Hui saw Lonely Little Monk, a trace of malice flashed in his eyes. This Lonely had killed his disciple, Yuan Guang. This time, he must not return. However, Xian Hui was stunned for a moment. Why didn't this Lonely have any Buddhist power cultivation? Xian Hui couldn't help but ask, Master Liaowu, why does your disciple have no cultivation? Amitabha Buddha. When Lonely was breaking through a few days ago, some bad things happened. Therefore, his Buddhist power was sealed, Master Liaowu replied. I think you should take a look at Xian Hui thought, he deserved it. He really deserved it. He had lost his cultivation, which made him even easier to deal with. Lonesome was dead for sure. Go-Wei Batsao felt Xian Hui's gaze and wished it could go over and beat him to death. However, it didn't have enough strength left in its heart, so it could only endure it. However, this guy didn't grow up and soon began to swing his arms. Hei Xinjiu, who was floating in the air, cursed angrily, Go-Wei Ba, you better walk properly. Go-Wei Batsao had no choice but to continue pretending reluctantly. After a while, they finally arrived at the mountain gate of the Bitter Zen sect. The mountain gate of the Bitter Zen sect was almost exactly the same as the mountain gate of the Zen sect, except that there was an additional word, bitter, on the plaque. Everyone, please come in. Xian Hui said politely. After exchanging some pleasantries with Master Liaowu and the others, they entered the gate one by one. Lonely Monk was a junior, so he naturally had to be at the back of the line. However, no one had expected that just as this guy's left foot stepped into the gate, a huge force came at him. This guy was careless for a moment and fell on his butt. Go-Wei Batsao was so angry that he almost flew into a rage. Who did this? Was he really trying to make things difficult for Go-Wei Ba? This was truly outrageous. He really wanted to see who was plotting against him. Ji Kong and Ji Su quickly helped Lonely Monk up. They thought that he was weak, so they helped him to walk inside. Who would have thought that he would be knocked down by a huge force the moment he reached the mountain gate? Ji Kong and Ji Su were also dragged down. Go-Wei Ba was dumbfounded. It wasn't man-made. Then what was going on? Everyone's gaze also fell on it. Master Liaowu frowned slightly, lonesome, what's going on? Go-Wei Batsao quickly followed Yun Chujia's instructions and said with some grievance, Master, perhaps it's because disciples' Buddha power has been sealed, so I can't enter the mountain gate. Master Liaowu was stunned. What kind of reason was this? The people of the four great families didn't have Buddhist power either. Didn't they all come in all of a sudden? A strange look flashed in Xian Hui's eyes. Although he didn't know what the reason was, he could make a big deal out of it. He quickly thought of a vicious idea. He put his palms together and said, "Amitabha. Master Liaowu, you don't know that the mountain gate of our bitter Zen sect has a Buddha's eye demon discerning array. Since Lonesome is unable to enter the mountain gate, he must have been possessed by an evil demon. In other words, he is most likely a reincarnation of the demon race. Since that's the case, you'd better kill him out of righteousness so as not to bring harm to the common people." Go-Wei Batsao almost died from anger. "This damned old bald donkey. You are the real reincarnation of the demon race. You are the one who is bringing harm to the common people. I'm so angry." Fortunately, after being threatened by Di Baiming, this fellow did not dare to act on his own now. Otherwise, this fellow would definitely scold Xian Hui until her blood boiled. Master Liaowu was also very angry. That little girl was possessed by the Buddha's candle. How was she the reincarnation of the demon race? What nonsense! However, why was the mountain gate not letting her in? Was it because her primordial spirit had left her body? Sect Master Lei Wu said in a deep voice, "Master Liaowu, that's not true. I have been worshipping Buddha in the Thousand Buddha Cave for many years. How could I be the reincarnation of the demon race? I think you should take a look at it. Was probably because his cultivation had been sealed that there was such a misunderstanding. If the bitter Zen sect treats our guests like this, then our Zen sect can only bid farewell." Xian Hui secretly gritted her teeth. If they let Master Liaowu leave just like that, then their bitter Zen sect's efforts would be in vain. Moreover, there were plenty of ways to deal with that loneliness, so it wouldn't take too long. Thinking of this, he shook his head and sighed. "All right, since Master Liaowu insists on doing this, then I have nothing more to say." Master Liaowu snorted coldly and gave a look to Master Lei. Master Lei immediately walked to the side of Go-Wei Batsao and carried it into the mountain gate. During this process, Master Lei also felt the huge force. However, his cultivation was superb, so he managed to force his way through the mountain gate. Go-Wei Batsao shook his arm and jumped a few times on the spot. After seeing that there was nothing unusual, he was finally relieved. Hei Xinjiu was furious. This damned Go-Wei Batsao had almost destroyed the character of lonely little monk. Fortunately, Go-Wei Batsao began to put on an act again after being scolded. Moreover, as it was a grass, its mind was even purer. At this moment, the appearance that it put on with all its heart felt somewhat ethereal. When everyone saw this, the doubts that rose up earlier were also put down. The reason why Lonely was jumping earlier was probably because he was scared. Yun Chuzhou also heaved a sigh of relief. However, she was so angry that she almost disappeared. As the Sea of Clouds was very suitable for the growth of medicinal herbs, there were many medicinal herbs growing on both sides of the road. Moreover, most of them were rarely seen in other places. Therefore, the crowd was dumbfounded when they saw little monk Lone jump into the medicinal herb bush and start pulling the grass. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw Lonely Little Monk's action. What did he mean? Why did Lonely pluck those herbs? Did those herbs offend him? Only Hei Xinjiu, who was floating in the air, knew that the reason Go Weiba plucked the herbs was naturally gluttony. She was so angry that she shouted, "Go Weiba, stop right now. Otherwise, you will never see Xiao Mogu again." Yun Chuzhou was not willing to use this to threaten Go-Wei Batsao because she always felt that she was the mother of the couple. Of course, it was only Go-Wei Bakao's wishful thinking. Xiao Mogu did not even think about it. When Go-Wei Batsao heard the words, Xiao Mogu, it struggled in its heart. In the end, it had the upper hand and reluctantly withdrew its claws. Panda's novel, therefore, this fellow hugged the medicinal herbs and asked Ji Su to help it put them away. Ji Su helped it put away the medicinal herbs with a stiff face. Then, he heard Go-Wei Batsao put his palms together and say, "Amitabha. This penniless monk has been learning alchemy recently. Therefore, when I saw these medicinal herbs, I couldn't help but feel embarrassed." Of course, These words were taught by He Xinjiu. No matter what, he had to give himself a way out. Master Liaowu thought to himself that the Buddha's candle was unreliable. Why would he pluck other people's herbs for no reason? Although he was cursing in his heart, he still said cooperatively, Master Xian Hui, I'm really sorry. This disciple of mine has been obsessed with studying these herbs ever since he failed in his cultivation. Alas, I can't be too harsh on him since he has suffered such a blow. Please forgive him, Master Xian Hui. I think you should take a look at Xian Hui didn't say anything. He just said a few polite words and continued to accompany the others to the meeting hall. Gowei Batsao glanced at the herbs on both sides of the road from the corner of his eye and swallowed his saliva secretly. This bitter Zen sect was much better than the Zen sect. There was delicious food everywhere. It was simply too blissful to live here. This fellow's mind was full of herbs. It wished it could lie down in the grass and take a bite. Yun Chuzhou knew Gowei Batsao too well. Naturally, she knew what it was thinking about now. She warned, Gowei Batsao, you better restrain yourself. If you are exposed, I won't be able to recover, and neither will you. Hearing this, Gowei Batsao continued to walk forward without looking sideways. This fellow was thinking in his heart, there should be medicinal herbs in the place where he would be staying at night, right? When the time came, just as Gowei Batsao was thinking about something, everyone arrived at the meeting hall. Master Xuanji personally waited at the door, appearing to be very sincere. I'm really sorry, I was busy with trivial matters and didn't welcome you. Please, please. After exchanging some pleasantries, they entered the meeting hall. After the guests and the host were seated, they began to chat. It was nothing more than empty pleasantries. He Xinjiu, who was floating in the air, curled her lips when she saw Master Zuanzi's hypocritical look. She had thought that Master Xuanji was just selfish and ruthless. She didn't expect that he was actually lecherous. He was really nothing. She didn't know if the other people of the bitter Zen sect knew about the deal between him and the Qing family. If they knew about it but didn't have any reaction, it meant that the people of the bitter Zen sect were nothing either. However, if the others didn't know about it, it would be a good opportunity to mess up the bitter Zen sect. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Master Xuanji said, Everyone, the Buddhist light of the Sea of Clouds will only appear on the 1st and 15th day of the Lunar New Year. Today is the 10th day of the Lunar New Year. Therefore, please don't be impatient. Let's spend a few days in the bitter Zen sect. No one had any objections to this. Since they were already here, it would be better to take the opportunity to visit the bitter Zen sect for a few days. After all, the bitter Zen sect had 10,000 years of history. Master Xuanji asked his men to arrange for everyone to rest in the guest room before inviting them to a banquet in the evening. Yun Chuzhou, who was floating in the air, caught a glimpse of a few hostile gazes. They were all old acquaintances, Yuan Tong, Yuan Ji, and Yuan Qing. Yun Chuzhou had already expected this, so she was not surprised at all. She wanted to see what kind of trouble they were going to cause. Master Liaowu was worried that little monk Lonely would be in trouble if he did not have spiritual power, so when he allocated the houses, he directly let Gowei Batsao live in the same courtyard as him. Gowei Batsao was very reluctant. With this old monk around, it could not eat grass. But on second thought, it was a weak chicken now. It was safer to follow this old monk. Forget it, let's live together. Master Liaowu moved into the main room, and Gowei Batsao moved into the side room on the east side. This guy carried the herbs he got from Ji Su into the room and began eating grass. While eating, this guy whispered, the herbs here are more delicious than other places. Little fairy, think of a way to take this bitter Zen sect for yourself. Although he didn't think that Yun Chuzhou and Little Fairy had anything to do with each other, he was flexible. In order to achieve his goal, he would even call Yun Chuzhou Great Aunt, let alone Little Fairy. Yun Chuzhou glanced at him. That's easy for you to say. The bitter Zen sect is not that easy to get. Don't think about these endless things. The most important thing now is to find the location of the soul-fixing spring and find a way to return my primordial spirit to my body. What you said makes sense. We have to enter the soul-strengthening spring as soon as possible to soak in it. Have you thought of a way? Go-Wei Butsao said. I think you should take a look at Go-Wei Butsao also wanted to return Yunchujia's primordial spirit to her body as soon as possible because it was too hard to be a human. Especially when it was the life of a monk. Moreover, if the stinky girl did not return her primordial spirit to her body, she would not be able to release Xiao Mogu. Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes, she said, since the bitter Zen sect asked us to wait here for a few days, they will definitely send someone to show us around. One of them will definitely be the soul-strengthening spring. When the time comes, pretend that you accidentally fell into the pool. Go-Wei Butsao immediately gave Yun Chuzhou a thumbs up. You are really cunning. Okay, let's do it. Yun Chuzhou was too lazy to argue with it. She also reminded her of the things that she needed to pay attention to at the banquet. Very soon, it was time for the banquet. The banquet was filled with vegetarian dishes, but there was wine. In the Chongshao continent, although Buddhist practitioners ate vegetarian food, they could still drink wine. This wine is brewed from the spring water of the Soul Consolidation Spring. It is refreshing and mellow. Moreover, it is extremely beneficial to the cultivation of the spiritual sense. Everyone, please. Master Xuanji said with a smile. Yun Chuzhou, who was floating in the air, curled her lips. The pretty boy had told her that the spring water of the Soul Consolidating Spring was useless when it left the pond. This Xianji must be exaggerating. Just as this fellow was thinking about it, he saw Go-Wei Butsao already gulping down a few cups of wine. This fellow even winked at her to claim credit. Did that mean that it was smart? This wine was brewed from the spring water of the Soul Consolidation Spring. Perhaps it would be beneficial. Yun Chuzhou wished she could strangle this fellow to death. As expected, she saw her face was instantly dyed with a layer of pink. She was even a little shaky when she sat down. Although Go-Wei Butsao could absorb the poison, it could not cure the alcohol. Moreover, due to its gluttony, its main body had also drunk 2 cups. At this moment, it felt that it wanted to fly. It tried its best to resist the urge to fly with its arms. It kept chanting in its heart, 1 Xiao Mogu, 2 Xiao Mogu. Yun Chuzhou was so angry that she was about to explode. However, it was useless to be angry. She could only pray that this Go-Wei Butsao would not make a fool of himself, and that he would not cause any trouble. After everyone drank a few glasses of wine, the atmosphere became lively. Xian Hui glanced at Go-Wei Butsao, then said with a faint smile, Senior brother sect leader, something strange happened today. Master Xuanji showed a curious look. What is it? Tell me. Today, when I accompanied the distinguished guests to enter the mountain gate, Lone was stopped twice by the Buddha's eye demon formation. In the end, a Master Li forcefully brought him in. Xian Hui said with a fake smile. Master Xuanji immediately turned pale with fright. There is such a thing? Since the Buddha's eye demon formation blocked Lone outside the gate, it means that there must be something wrong with him. Maybe he is the reincarnation of the demon race. Pandus novel. Yun Chuzhou also frowned. She was not worried about how these 2 people would make things difficult for Go-Wei Butsao. After all, before their goal was completed, they would not provoke the Zen sect too much. She frowned because she could not understand why she was blocked outside the mountain gate. Was it targeted at her or Go-Wei Butsao? Just as she was thinking about it, she heard a crackling sound. When she looked closely, she felt her head hurt even more. Go-Wei Butsao swept all the cups, bowls, and plates on his table to the ground. It was not enough to vent his anger, so he directly flipped the table over. Go-Wei Butsao took the opportunity to wave his arm a few times. He felt much more comfortable. I think you should take a look at. He felt comfortable, and everyone was dumbfounded. This lonely little monk was too bold. This was the territory of the bitter Zen sect, and he actually dared to flip the table? Master Liaowu secretly complained in his heart. He thought that lonely's core was the Buddha's candle, and he knew that it was very naughty. He could only hope that Yunchuji's primordial spirit could restrain it. Seeing that Goei Batsao flipped over, Master Xuanzi's face immediately darkened. Lonely, what do you mean? Goei Batsao was already 80% drunk. He pointed at Master Xuanji and said, "You are the reincarnation of the demon race. Your entire family is the reincarnation of the demon race. This penniless monk is the son of Buddha. He has nothing to do with the demon race. What Buddha's I demon discerning array? If I had to say, there is nothing at the mountain gate. It must be that your bitter Zen sect has used some means to frame this penniless monk." The meeting hall was dead silent. Everyone stared at the furious lonely little monk with their mouths agape. Was this still that innocent and harmless lonely little Buddha? This was simply no different from a scoundrel in the marketplace. Yun Chuzhou was so angry that she was twitching. The persona that she had painstakingly built up was all destroyed by this damn Goei Batsao. Master Liaowu also felt a little pain in his head. He quickly said, "Evil creature. Why aren't you sitting down? What nonsense are you spouting?" Goei Batsao wanted to continue cursing, but when he saw Yun Chuji's gloomy expression, he finally sobered up a little and sat down awkwardly. Master Liaowu put his palms together towards Master Xuanji. Ba. This evil disciple of mine had some changes in his temperament due to a mistake in his cultivation. In addition, people who cultivate Buddhism are most afraid of being called devils, so it is understandable that he is so excited. Master Xuanji, please don't lower yourself to his level. Chapter 53:16 The people from the 10,000 Buddha's sacred palace. Master Xuanzi's face was as dark as water. He had always disliked lonely monk, and now that he was being scolded in public, it would be strange if his mood was good. He originally only wanted to add trouble to Master Liaowu and didn't really intend to do anything to lonely monk, but now he had changed his mind. This lonely monk had a belly full of bad water. Getting rid of him first would also be beneficial to the next plan. Thus, he said, "Master Liaowu, if he only offended me with words, I won't hold it against him for your sake. However, this is related to the demon race, so we have to act cautiously." When Master Liaowu heard him say this, his heart sank. He knew that he definitely had a backup plan. As expected, Xian Ji continued, "How about this? Our bitter Zen sect has a pagoda of refining demons. It was given to us by the 10,000 Buddha's sacred palace thousands of years ago. If you are not a demon, you will be safe and sound in the pagoda. If you are a demon, you will be trapped in the pagoda and eventually turn into nothingness. For the sake of prudence and to clear Loan's name, let him try entering the pagoda of refining demons." Hei Xinjia's heart immediately sank. Although she did not know whether she was a demon or not, her father and mother were very likely to be demons. She might really be a demon. Moreover, she was a ghost ancestor and a monster ancestor. She might even be inextricably linked to the demon race. If she entered that so-called devil refining pagoda, would she still be able to survive? Therefore, she could not enter no matter what. Thinking of this, she said to Goei Batsao, "Goei Batsao, it's fine if you were fooling around before. This time, you must do as I say. Do you hear me?" Although Goei Batsao was a little drunk, it also knew that this matter was very important, so it immediately nodded. Goei Batsao did as Yun Chuzhou taught it. It sneered and said, "Devil refining pagoda? Who knows whether it is the devil refining pagoda or not? Maybe you are targeting this penniless monk because of the last 10,000 Buddha's grand meeting and want to take this penniless monk's life. Master, I think the bitter Zen sect is lying about the Buddhist light in the sea of clouds. They want to kill us both. If that's the case, what's the point of us staying here? Let's go now." Master Xuanji, Lonesome's words may not be pleasant to hear, but they make sense. Our Zen sect is the holy land of Buddhism, and Lonesome worships the Buddha in the 1,000 Buddha's cave. He has always been fine. Why is he being slandered as a devil by you? It seems that there is no need for us to stay. Farewell. Master Liaowu stood up and was about to leave. Of course, he did not want Lone to enter the devil refining pagoda. After all, the Buddha's candle had the bell of dawn and the wooden fish of evening in it. If it was really refined, their Zen sect would suffer a great loss. Moreover, this little girl called him master. He could not just watch her enter a dangerous situation. Perhaps the devil refining pagoda was a harmful thing. Xian Ji didn't expect Master Liaowu to have such a big reaction. After weighing the pros and cons in his heart, he decided to give up on letting Yun Chuzhou enter the devil refining pagoda. At this moment, a monk ran in a panic. Master, someone from the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall has come. As soon as the monk said this, everyone stood up. What? Someone from the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall had come? In the eyes of these people, the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall was a lofty existence. They looked up to the people of the divine enlightenment continent as if they were mortals looking up to immortals. They didn't expect to see people from the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall in their lifetime. They were surprised, happy, and a little nervous. Chapter 53:17 floated in the air. Master Liao's heart sank. Why were the people from the 10,000 Buddha's sacred palace here? Could it be that they were here for Yun Chuzhou? He couldn't help but feel lucky. Fortunately, the ring that Yun Chuzhou was wearing at this moment was of a higher grade than the previous one. Even the people from the 10,000 Buddha's sacred palace might not be able to see through it. Yun Chuzhou's eyes were deep. People from the 10,000 Buddha's sacred palace? The culprit who imprisoned her parents? She wanted to see for herself. At this moment, Master Xuanji hurriedly said, "Everyone, quick, follow me out to welcome the lords of the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall." Only then did everyone wake up from their dreams. They followed Master Xuanji out of the meeting hall. Not long after everyone walked out, they saw 3 monks walking over. What surprised everyone was that the 3 monks were actually floating in the air. Although they were only 1 foot above the ground, it was still shocking enough. It must be known that the people of the heavy cloud continent could only fly by relying on spirit tools, but these 3 monks could actually fly without relying on anything. It was really shocking. Among the 3 monks, 1 walked in the front, while the other 2 were half a step behind. Obviously, the monk in front had a higher status. The 3 people didn't have any expression on their faces, but if one looked closely, one would see the disdain and arrogance hidden in their eyes. In their eyes, the people of the Chongshao continent were no different from ants. If it wasn't for the higher-ups' instructions, they wouldn't have come to this inferior continent where the spiritual and Buddhist powers were both poor. Master Xuanji was the first to kneel on the ground, and the others could only follow suit. Yun Chuzhou curled her lips. This Xian Ji's bones were really soft. He hadn't done anything yet, but he had already knelt down. Gowei Batsao didn't have the moral integrity of a human, so it didn't feel any psychological burden and also knelt down. When the 3 monks of the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall saw that everyone was kowtowing, the disdain in their eyes became even more intense. The monk in the lead said indifferently, "All of you, stand up." Only then did Master Xuanji stand up, and then said in fear and trepidation, "May I know how to address the 3 eminent monks?" This penniless monk Yin Cheng, this is Yin Zhao, Yin Su, 2 junior brothers. Yin Cheng still said indifferently. "So it's Master Yin Cheng, Master Yin Zhao, Master Yin Su. The 3 masters, please come in." Master Xuanji said respectfully. The 3 people didn't stand on ceremony, and walked past the crowd to the front of the meeting hall. Master Xuanji gave the main seat to Yin Cheng, and as for him and the others, they stood respectfully to the side, not even daring to sit down. How could Gowei Batsao know that there were twists and turns here? It plopped down on its original seat. Master Liao's sweat immediately broke out, and he glared at it. Gowei Batsao only then realized and stood up. It was over, it was 80% likely that it was in trouble again. How could it have such a tough life? It was fine that it accidentally injured the smelly girl in the battle, but how could it be in trouble now that it sat down? As expected, Yin Chang and the other two's gazes fell on Go Wei Batsao. However, when they saw that it didn't have any cultivation, their gazes immediately shifted away. Although Go Wei Batsao sat down on its own accord and was disrespectful to them, they didn't need to be bothered with an ant. The important matter was more important. Master Xuanji quickly ordered people to serve the best tea and the other two pastries, and politely invited Yin Chang and the other two to taste them. Yin Chang glanced at the fragrant tea offered but didn't drink it. How could he have the nerve to offer them such tea leaves? This Chongshao continent was indeed very barren. Seeing that Yin Chang and the other two were about to taste it, Master Xuanji said, "Master Yin Chang and the other two, I wonder if the three of you have any instructions for coming to our bitter Zen sect this time?" Chapter 53:18, Thousand Eyes and Demon Array. Yin Chang glanced at the crowd. He intentionally released his aura. Some of the people with lower cultivation could not help but sweat and even tremble. Go Wei Batsao did not find anything unusual, but she was still trembling under He Xinjia's order, just like the others. Yin Chang noticed that the crowd was even more respectful to him, and there was a hint of pride in his eyes. He then said, "Back then, our 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall set up a formation at the entrance of your bitter Zen sect. Today, there are actually signs of activation. Although it's not very obvious, it also means that something is wrong. That's why they sent me here to take a look." As soon as Yin Chang's words came out, everyone's expressions changed. Master Xuanji and the others were naturally gloating. What they said about the Buddha's demon discerning formation was just nonsense. They didn't expect the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall to really set up a formation at the entrance. Moreover, from what they had said, it was obvious that activating the array wasn't a good thing. That loan was going to be unlucky. He might even implicate the Zen sect. The Lan family's ancestor had determined that the little monk Lone was Yun Chuzhou, the troublemaker. At this moment, he was burning with anxiety, thinking that this guy was seeking death by playing tricks. There was no need to pretend to be the little monk Lone. This time, he was going to lose his life. Master Liao Wu and the others were even more anxious. If the people of the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall were to see through Lone's identity, they would definitely be blamed. If they had known this would happen, they would not have come to the bitter Zen sect. It was too late to repent. He Xinjiu, who was floating in the air, felt as if her heart was bickering with a dog. She had never thought that the mountain gate of the bitter Zen sect really had a formation. Moreover, it was a formation set up by the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall. Today's matter was going to be terrible. Go Wei Batsao was also a little nervous. After all, Yun Chuzhou was its host. If its host died, it might not be able to find another host for a long time. Sect Master Xuanji suppressed the ecstasy in his heart and said, "Master Xuanji, what kind of array formation is the front gate?" "The Thousand Eyes and Mo array that can identify the devil Qi." "Is there anything unusual this afternoon?" Yin Chang asked. Xian Ji was overjoyed and quickly said, "To tell you the truth, Lone from the Zen sect was blocked twice by a huge force when he passed by the mountain gate this afternoon. Later, he was forcefully brought into the mountain gate by the Zen sect." Yin Chang slightly raised his eyebrows and asked, "Where is the Lone you mentioned?" Xian Ji immediately pointed at Go Wei Batsao, who was trying his best to reduce his presence. "Lone, why don't you come over and confess your crimes?" Go Wei Batsao was furious. "Confess my ass. It was obviously just a grass, it had nothing to do with the devil, all right?" However, it also knew that now was not the time to mess around. It quickly followed Yun Chujia's instructions and walked in front of Yin Chang and the other two with an innocent and aggrieved expression. Ba. The three eminent monks are wise. This penniless monk worships Buddha all year round. I really don't know why I was blocked outside the mountain gate. There must be a misunderstanding, Go Wei Batsao said. Yin Chang sized up Go Wei Batsao. He didn't expect that the one who had triggered the array was this little monk without cultivation. However, he didn't have the patience to investigate the truth. Since this little monk had triggered the array, he would kill him. Yun Chuzhou saw the killing intent in Yin Chang's eyes and her heart tightened. Not good. This Yin Chang actually wanted to kill her. She quickly commanded Gowei Batsao, "Master, you look like an accomplished monk. I believe that you won't disregard human lives. Please clear this penniless monk's name." Chapter 53:19 Who hit me? Yin Chang glanced at Gowei Batsao with disdain. Did this trash without cultivation think that he would spare him just because he said a few good words? He didn't want to stay in the Chongshao continent for even a moment. How could he have the patience to return his innocence? Whether he was innocent or deserved it had nothing to do with him. He just needed to complete the mission. Yun Chuzhou saw the killing intent in his eyes grow stronger, and she knew something was wrong. Before she could think of anything, she saw Master Liaowu bow and say, "Master, Lonesome is simple-minded and has been worshipping Buddha in the Thousand Buddha Cave. Do you think there's some misunderstanding?" Yun Chuzhou did not expect Master Liaowu to plead on her behalf. Although he did it largely for the sake of Daybreak Bell and 11 Wanmu, she still remembered his kindness. After all, not everyone had the courage to plead in front of the people of the 10,000 Buddha's sacred palace. They were already scared out of their wits. The old ancestor of the Lan family also wanted to plead, but he had no position. After all, little monk Lonely had nothing to do with the Lan family on the surface. Yin Chang looked at Master Liaowu unhappily and sneered, "Are you doubting the thousand-eyed demon array of our 10,000 Buddha's sacred palace? Or are you doubting my decision?" Master Liaowu immediately said in fear and trepidation, "Master, you misunderstood me. How could I dare to doubt you? But this Lone is my disciple. Can you give him a chance to prove his innocence?" Before Yin Chang could say anything, Yin Zhao behind him mocked, "Your disciple? So what? Do you think you are useful in front of us? Forget about Lonesome being guilty, even if he isn't. Do we, the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall, need the consent of ants like you to kill someone? If you say any more, I'll kill you too." Yin Zhao's words could be said to be extremely arrogant. The Lan family's ancestor and the others were usually people who could call the wind and summon the rain, so how could they have ever suffered such cowardice? However, even if they were dissatisfied, they could only endure it. Although Yin Zhao's words were unpleasant to hear, it was also the truth. They were indeed ants in the eyes of the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall. Master Liaowu's face flushed red. He didn't know what to say. Yun Chuzhi's eyes were filled with anger. She floated in front of Yin Zhao and raised her hand to slap him. This fellow was also furious. He didn't hope that he would succeed. After all, other than the slap he gave Di Biming, he had never succeeded. Pa! A loud slap sounded, and half of Yin Zhao's face immediately swelled up. Everyone was stunned. No one had expected such a thing to happen. Who had slapped Yin Zhao? Yin Zhao was completely dumbfounded. How did he get slapped all of a sudden? Which ant had hit him? However, the sect leader and the others were still quite a distance away from the three of them. He was not blind, so he did not see any movement from those people. Could it be that he had seen a ghost? Yun Chuzhou saw his swollen face and wanted to beat him up again, but her hand directly went through Yin Zhao's head. This guy was a little annoyed. If he had known earlier, he would have slapped Yin Zhao's temple and killed him. Yin Zhao was embarrassed and angry. He shouted angrily, "Who hit me? Get out here." Naturally, no one would come out. Although Master Liaowu and the others did not say it, they were very angry in their hearts. They deserved it. Why didn't they beat you to death? Yin Chang frowned and coughed. Yin Zhao didn't make a sound. He stared at everyone sinisterly. It must be someone among these ants. If he knew who it was, he would definitely kill him. Chapter 53:20 Voluntary entry into the Devil Refining Pagoda. Yun Chuzhou used this short period of time to think about several things. Master Liaowu and the other two could not fight head-on to protect her and Yin Chang and the other two. She had to save herself. However, her primordial spirit was out of her body. Go-Wei Batsao had no other means of attack other than summoning demonic beasts. How could she save her life? She thought for a moment and finally gritted her teeth. She immediately had Go-Wei Batsao speak loudly, "Master, although this penniless monk's life is as cheap as an ant, this penniless monk is a Buddhist cultivator after all. Even if I die, I don't want to bear the name of the demon race. I voluntarily entered the devil refining pagoda. If this penniless monk is able to come out safely, Master, please clear this penniless monk's name." Yin Cheng frowned. His original intention was to kill this lone and return to the 10,000 Buddha's sacred palace immediately. However, what Yin Zhao had done just now made him suspicious. Could it be that there were hidden experts among the people present? Although he felt that the people of the Heavy Cloud continent were like ants, there was no guarantee that the people of the other factions in the Divine Enlightenment continent would be hiding among them. It would be best if there were no complications. Moreover, he had long heard of the Devil Refining Pagoda and wanted to see it. Thinking of this, he said lightly, "All right, we will do as you say." Hearing this, Master Xuanji hurriedly said, "The Devil Refining Pagoda is at the back of the mountain. Please step forward, my lords." Yin Cheng nodded, and everyone immediately left the meeting hall and rushed to the back of the Bitter Zen sect. Master Liaowu, the ancestor of the Lan family, and the others had grave expressions on their faces. Although they were sure that Yun Chujiu was not a devil, she did not have the slightest bit of cultivation now. Could she come out of the Devil Refining Pagoda alive? If there were other options, Yun Chujiu would naturally not choose this. However, there was only one way to survive now. Go-Wei Batsao was also a little apprehensive. The storm had already passed. Would she capsize in this little ditch? It stared at Yin Cheng and the other two who were walking in front and secretly hated them. If it were not for these three old bald donkeys, there would not be such a terrible thing. Unfortunately, it was too weak now. Otherwise, it would kill them. Otherwise, it would lure some demonic beasts over. No, there shouldn't be two powerful demonic beasts nearby. If they came over, they would be courting death. Just as Go-Wei Batsao was gnashing his teeth, everyone had already arrived at the Devil Refining Pagoda. In the clouds, a 3-story pagoda appeared in front of everyone. It looked like the pagoda before them was not much different from an ordinary pagoda, but everyone knew that since this Devil Refining Pagoda was given to them by the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall, its power must be extraordinary. Yin Cheng and the other two had a complicated expression on their faces. They did not have a high status in the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall, so they did not know some of the secrets. They couldn't help but wonder, why would they give a treasure like the refined Devil Pagoda to the Bitter Zen sect? Wasn't this a reckless waste of God's gift? Master Xuanji said respectfully to Yin Cheng, "Master, should I open the refined Devil Pagoda now?" After seeing Yin Cheng nod, he took out a Buddhist bead and activated it with Buddhist power. The Buddhist bead flew toward the refined Devil Pagoda and landed in the groove. The door of the Devil Refining Pagoda slowly opened, and there seemed to be Buddhist chanting coming from inside. Go-Wei Batsao immediately walked into the Devil Refining Pagoda with her head held high and her chest puffed out. The door of the pagoda slowly closed. Yun Chujiu and Go-Wei Batsao looked around as soon as they entered the Devil Refining Pagoda. They realized that the place they were at now looked similar to the Great Hall of the Mahavira. In front of them was a huge Buddha statue. The Buddha statue looked solemn and benevolent as it looked at them. Chapter 53:21 was so painful Go-Wei Batsao immediately knelt on the futon in front of the Buddha statue and mumbled, Buddha bless my Go-Wei Batsao to cultivate into human form as soon as possible, bless my wedding night." Yun Chujiu could not help but roll her eyes. At this time, she actually had the leisure to ask for a wedding night. She did not pay attention to the muttering Go-Wei Batsao, but looked around. Previously, when she saw that there were 3 floors in the pagoda, she thought that this was the first floor. However, this place was different from what she had imagined, and nothing dangerous had happened. Just as Yun Chuzhou was thinking, the Buddha statue shot out 10,000 rays of golden light to envelop the Gowei Batsao. Gowei Batsao immediately cried out in pain, "Ouch, ouch, it hurts so much." Yun Chuzhou looked up and saw that Gowei Bacao's clothes had been dyed red with blood. It must have been injured by the golden light. I can't. I have to go back to my dantian. If I stay any longer, my baby will die of pain. Gowei Batsao cried out. Yun Chuzhou snorted, "This little pain is nothing compared to the breaking of the meridians. You can't even bear this, right?" Gowei Batsao stopped crying when it heard that. It snorted, "I was just playing with you. To an unparalleled hero like me, this little pain is nothing." Yun Chuzhou glanced at it, "Is that so? Then I'll have to take a good look." Gowei Batsao had already said its big words. It could only secrete juice to quickly repair Yun Chuzhou's body while enduring the pain and pretending that it did not care. Yun Chuzhou was secretly happy. She was naturally trying to provoke it. If she really let Gowei Batsao return to her dantian, her body might be fatally injured. If that was the case, even if she could return her primordial spirit to her body in the future, she might be in trouble. Gowei Batsao grimaced in pain and cursed, "Damn it, I kowtowed to this Buddha statue for nothing. Not only did I not get any benefits, I was even injured by its golden light. If it was not for the fact that I can't use it now, I would definitely smash this useless Buddha statue." Yun Chuzhou looked at Gowei Batsao grimacing in pain and could not help but feel glad that her primordial spirit was now out of her body, or else she would suffer. However, this was not the way to go on. She had to enter the second level as soon as possible. However, where was the entrance? Yun Chuzhou and Gowei Batsao searched for a long time but still could not find the entrance to the second level. Yun Chuzhou cursed in her heart. Could it be that she was really a demon? So, she was trapped in the first level and suffered until she died? She did not care whether she was a demon or not. Regardless of whether she was a human or a demon, it was just that they were on different sides. In fact, there was no difference. However, how could she break the dilemma in front of her? Finally, her gaze landed on the Buddha statue. The right hand of the Buddha statue was placed on the right knee, and her fingers touched the ground. She had read a lot of Buddhist scriptures in the Buddhist scripture library of the Zen sect, so she knew that this was the devil-subduing seal. However, it looked a little out of place. What was wrong with it? Yun Chuzhou's pupils suddenly constricted. She knew. Logically speaking, the 5 fingers of the right hand of the Buddha statue should be together, but the little finger of the right hand of the Buddha statue seemed to tilt slightly to the right. Yun Chuzhou floated closer to take a closer look and saw that the little finger was pointing at a lotus petal carved on the lotus seat. Yun Chuzhou immediately said to Gowei Batsao, "Come over and press this lotus petal. This should be the mechanism leading to the second floor." Chapter 53:22, 18 Arhats. Gowei Batsao was skeptical and asked, "How did you know?" Yun Chuzhou glanced at it. "If I asked you to press it, then press it. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Gowei Batsao was so angry that it was twitching. It cursed in its heart. Did this stupid girl really think that it was afraid of her? Pooey. Shameless. However, it still had to point at this stupid girl. It did not want to be trapped in this broken pagoda. Hence, it climbed onto the Buddha statue and pressed on the lotus petal that Yun Chuzhou was pointing at. This fellow cursed in its heart. If there was no reaction after pressing on it, it would definitely laugh at this stupid girl. Otherwise, she would really think that she knew everything about astronomy and geography. However, when its hand touched the petal, it actually pressed on it. At the same time, a stone staircase appeared out of thin air, leading to the roof. It really worked. Although Gowei Batsao was a little unwilling, it had to admit that Yun Chuzhou was indeed capable. How did she discover it? However, the most important thing now was to hurry up and go to the second floor. It did not want to suffer the pain of 1,000 cuts. Yun Chujo glanced at the Gowei Batsao that was trying its best to climb at night. The reason why she was scolding it earlier was that she was afraid that it would be too arrogant and would not listen to her arrangements. She finally realized that she could not give it any face with this scheming plant. Otherwise, it would take advantage of her. The Gowei Batsao climbed up the stone stairs and finally reached the second floor of the pagoda. Seeing the scene before him, Gowei Batsao could not help but be shocked. There were 18 Arhat statues on this level, and each of them glared at Gowei Batsao ferociously. Normally, Gowei Batsao would not be afraid of them, but now that Gowei Batsao did not have any abilities, it felt a little guilty. Little fairy, quickly look for the mechanism that leads to the third level. I don't want to stay here for long. As soon as Gowei Batsao finished speaking, the Arhat statues moved. Gowei Batsao was so frightened that it cried out, "It's over. It's over. They're going to gang up on the baby." Yun Chujo was completely speechless. Where was your usual arrogance? Why did you cower? Although Yun Chujo was cursing in her heart, she knew that the situation was critical. She quickly thought of a solution. Unexpectedly, the 18 Arhats only surrounded the Gowei Batsao in the middle and did not attack. Instead, they began to chant Buddhist scriptures. As they chanted, golden Sanskrit language overflowed and formed a huge golden lotus, enveloping the Gowei Batsao. The Sanskrit language was like a sharp arrow that rushed into the Gowei Bakao's forehead. Gowei Batsao was delighted to see it. The Sanskrit language was probably trying to attack the smelly girl's spiritual sense, but now that the smelly girl's primordial spirit had left her body, it was useless for the Sanskrit language to rush into the smelly girl's forehead. As expected, after the Sanskrit language rushed into Yun Chuji's forehead, because there was no target to attack, it dissipated on its own. When Yun Chujo saw this, she could not help but be delighted. It seemed that her primordial spirit leaving her body still had many benefits, but even if she did not have her primordial spirit leaving her body, the Sanskrit language could not hurt her. Yun Chujo ignored the Gowei Batsao and began to search for a way to get to the third level. Yun Chujo quickly discovered a problem. The position of the 18 Arhats was actually the same as the Buddhist light golden lotus formation that old monk Wang Su had used back then. Although the effect was slightly different, the principle was probably the same. Yun Chujo frowned slightly. Would she be able to leave the second level after breaking the 18 Arhats formation? Just as she was thinking, Gowei Batsao let out a scream. Chapter 53-23 Miserable Gowei Batsao. Yun Chuji's heart tightened. She quickly looked at Gowei Batsao and saw that the golden Sanskrit swords were no longer rushing towards Gowei Bakao's glabella. Instead, they were shooting towards Gowei Bakao's body. Although Gowei Batsao jumped up and down to dodge, there were still sharp swords shooting towards its body. Gowei Batsao cried loudly as it dodged, "Woo woo, what kind of sin has this baby done? Why isn't it being cut into 1,000 pieces or thousands of arrows piercing through the heart?" It really wanted to abandon its so-called moral integrity and return to its dantian. However, it also thought that if it retreated to its dantian, it would lose face, but if this stinky girl's body was destroyed, it would have no place to stay. Thinking of this, it could only grit its teeth and endure. This guy could not help but feel a little emotional. When that stinky girl was struck by lightning, her meridians were broken, and the pain was much more severe than this, but that stinky girl endured it without saying a word. It had to be said that that wretched girl still had some redeeming qualities. Yun Chujo was not proficient in formations. Although she had seen Wang Su use the Buddhist light golden lotus formation before, it was only limited to remembering the locations of the golden lotuses. However, she did not know how to break it. This fellow thought to himself, then he'll use the most stupid method. Gowei Batsao, if you move the position of one of the Arhat statues, this formation should be broken. Yun Chujo shouted at Gowei Batsao. Gowei Batsao was so angry that she shook her arm. That's easy for you to say. Do you think I can get close to those Arhat statues? Yun Chujo touched her nose. It made sense. Gowei Batsao could barely protect her vitals now, so she couldn't get close to any of the Arhat statues. What should she do? Go-Wei Batsao shouted, didn't you just slap that hidden reflection? Can you try to move the Arhat statue? If you can't move it, you'll die without a complete corpse. Yun Chujia's eyes lit up. She floated to the cloth bag Arhat's side and reached out to move the Arhat statue. Unfortunately, her hands passed through the Arhat statue and did not move the Arhat statue at all. She was burning with anxiety and kept trying. She felt tired, but she still could not move the Arhat statue at all. Go-Wei Bakao's screams were heard one after another. Go-Wei Batsao was also in pain and could not stop cursing. Fuck, it's really like a tiger being bullied by a dog. I'm so big, but I'm so aggrieved. I'm so angry. Stupid girl, you're a grand ghost ancestor, but you don't even know how to use your spiritual sense to attack, you trash. When you attack, you have to forget that you're an immortal soul. You trash. Think about how it was ever-changing in the ghost realm, you blockhead. When Yun Chuzhou heard Go-Wei Ba's words, she was naturally furious. However, her heart skipped a beat. Did she forget that she was a primordial spirit? She subconsciously raised her hand to push the cloth bag Arhat in front of her. She did not expect that she would actually push the cloth bag Arhat away. As the cloth bag Arhat was pushed away, all the attacks came to an abrupt end. A stone staircase appeared on the roof. Go-Wei Batsao sat on the ground, panting heavily. The human body was useless, and it was already exhausted after jumping for a short while. It suddenly remembered the words it had said to Yun Chuzhou, and could not help but tremble. It quickly said, little fairy, I had no choice just now. It was to stimulate your potential. It seems that this method is not bad. Ha. Chapter 53-24 Loneliness died. Yun Chuzhou knew that it was lying through its teeth, but she did not expose it. She only said lightly, okay, I got it. You rest for a while, and we'll head to the third level. Go-Wei Batsao felt a little uncomfortable when it saw that Yun Chuzhou did not scold it. This wretched girl must be thinking of settling the score after the autumn. How insidious. It recalled what it said just now and did not say anything extraordinary. It was slightly relieved. After Go-Wei Batsao recovered some of its strength, it climbed up the stone stairs. However, when it reached the third level, it was stunned. The third level was empty. There was nothing. Even when it went up, the stone stairs that originally led to the second level disappeared. Go-Wei Batsao initially thought that there would be an attack soon. However, 15 minutes, an hour, 4 hours, until the night passed, there were no signs of an attack. Could this be a prison? The people outside the tower had been waiting for the movement inside. However, when they saw that it was already the next morning and that Lone did not come out of the tower, their expressions became complicated. Yin Zhao snorted coldly, Lei Wu, didn't you say that Lone was not a demon? Then why didn't she come out? I didn't expect that your Zen sect would take in a demon as a disciple. She is indeed an ant. She doesn't even have the ability to differentiate. Master Liaowu tightened his hands under his wide sleeves. Compared to Yin Zhao's harsh words, he was more worried about Yun Chujia's safety inside the pagoda. Yin Zhao saw that Master Liaowu didn't say anything and provoked, what? Are you mute? Why aren't you saying anything? Master Liaowu couldn't take it anymore and said calmly, the light on the top of the tower hasn't been extinguished, which means that Lone is still alive. So it's still too early to say that she is a devil. Everyone looked at the top of the tower. Ever since the tower opened, a gentle light had lit up on the top of the tower. It hadn't been extinguished yet. Perhaps Lone was still alive. Master Xuanji sneered at the side and said, Master Liaowu, you are most likely wrong about one thing. If Lone was a demon, she might not have died immediately. Instead, she would have been trapped inside the pagoda. Now, she is obviously trapped inside. She is a demon. Master Liaowu suddenly did not know what to say. He was also a little uncertain. Could it be that the little girl was also a demon like her parents? Seeing that Master Liaowu was rendered speechless by him, Xian Ji couldn't help but feel proud in his heart. The Zen sect actually had a demon disciple. He only needed to stir up a little bit in front of Yin Chang and the other two, and the Zen sect would be in big trouble. If that was the case, he didn't need to waste time to carry out the later plans. Thinking of this, Xian Ji said, Master Liaowu, I always thought that your Zen sect was a respectable sect. I didn't expect that you actually took in a demon, and it's even your disciple. Could it be that your Zen sect has other connections with the demon race? Master Liaowu was both angry and afraid. The best way now was to distance himself from the little monk Lonely, but he really couldn't open his mouth. However, if he allowed Xian Ji to sow discord, it might bring disaster to the Zen sect. What should he do? At this moment, someone exclaimed, Look! The light at the top of the tower is gone. Lonely is dead. Sect leader Liaowu looked at the top of the tower in disbelief. Sure enough, the light at the top of the tower had disappeared. His head buzzed. That little girl, the disciple who chased after him and called him master, was really dead? Chapter 53-25 was fate. Everyone's eyes fell on the top of the tower. Master Xuanji had said before that if the light at the top of the tower was extinguished, it meant that the people inside had died. The old ancestor of the Lan family trembled. For a moment, he had mixed feelings. He had important plans for that troublemaker, and now he was dead. He was disappointed that his plan had failed. He was angry at the Zen Buddhism sect and the 10,000 Buddhas temple. He was also somewhat disappointed and sad. He had thought that he would never experience such so-called sadness ever since all the Wang generation members of the Lan family had died. He did not expect that after the troublemaker, who was not related to him by blood, had died. He actually felt this kind of feeling again. When did the original use and control begin to be mixed with family affection? Was it when she smiled cheekily and flattered him? Was it when she was smart and quick-witted and obtained the first place in the family competition? Or did she rely on her own strength to bring everyone from the Lan family safely back to the Lan family? The Lan family's old ancestor forcefully suppressed this kind of emotion in the bottom of his heart. He was the head of the Lan family. He still wanted to take revenge. He also wanted to carry the Lan family forward. He could not help himself. The gloating expression on Master Xuanzi's face couldn't be hidden anymore. He said to Master Liaowu, Master Liaowu, didn't you say that the light at the top of the pagoda doesn't extinguish, so it doesn't mean that Lone is a demon? Now you see it, right? The light at the top of the pagoda has been extinguished. This is enough to prove that Lone is a demon. You actually took a demon as your disciple. TSK, are you blind, or are you an accomplice of the demon? Upon hearing this, Yin Chang and the other two looked at Master Liaowu. Master Liaowu was so angry that he was trembling. He hated Xian Ji to the extreme. However, that little girl was already dead. It was meaningless to argue about whether she was a demon or not. Now, he had to ensure that the Zen sect would not be implicated. Thinking of Yun Chujio, his heart moved. The person who had asked the Zen sect to lock up Yun Chujio's parents was also from the 10,000 Buddha Sacred Hall. Moreover, his level was obviously higher than Yin Chang and the other two. Therefore, he put his palms together and said, Amitabha. Can the three masters speak further? Yin Chang and the other two were very disdainful, but when they saw the solemn expression on Sect Master Wu's face, they still followed him to the side. After activating the isolation array for Sect Master Wu, they then said, Master Liaowu and the other two, I wonder if you know Master Wu Lu. Yin Chang and the other two were startled and said in a faint voice, Of course we know him. Master Wu Lu, our martial uncle, what do you mean by this? Upon hearing this, Sect Master Liaowu heaved a sigh of relief and quickly said, Master Liaowu once came to our Zen sect and gave us a mission. Therefore, our Zen sect only follows the lead of the 10,000 Buddha's Sacred Hall. We would never dare to have second thoughts, and we would never dare to collude with the demon race. Yin Chang and the other two were skeptical. However, since their mission had been completed, there was no need to offend anyone. At most, they could find an opportunity to ask Martial Uncle Liao Wu when they went back. Yin Chang snorted coldly. Alright, I'll let your Zen sect off this time. If we find out that you colluded with the demon race, HMPH. Master Huo Wu heaved a sigh of relief. No matter what, the Zen sect had been saved, but it was a pity for that little girl. Alas, this was all fate. Yin Chang and the other two saw that the matter had been settled and were about to leave. Master Xuanji said eagerly, 3 masters, there are still 3 days before the grand scene of the Sea of Clouds and Buddhist Light. Why don't the 3 of you stay and let this penniless monk do his duty as a host? Chapter 53-26, Buddhist Light of the Sea of Clouds. Yin Chang and the other two were a little tempted. The Buddhist Light of the Sea of Clouds could be said to be a once-in-1,000-years spectacle. It was not bad to stay and take a look. Seeing that the 3 were a little tempted, Master Xuanji quickly asked someone to arrange their accommodation. He was extremely attentive, so the 3 of them took the opportunity to agree. Originally, Master Liao Wu and the other 2 had wanted to leave because they were in a bad mood. However, now that Yin Chang and the other 2 had stayed, they naturally could not bid farewell. They could only bite the bullet and stay. Xian Ji's heart was filled with joy. Compared to having a relationship with the Divine Devil Hall, he was naturally more willing to curry favor with the 10,000 Buddha's Sacred Hall. If he had a good relationship with the 10,000 Buddha's Sacred Hall, his ascension might be just around the corner. Therefore, he had originally planned to kill the members of the Zen sect, but he decided to wait for Yin Chang and the other 2 to leave. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this morning, before the sun rose, Master Xuanji and the other 2 had already accompanied Yin Chang and the other 2 to the highest peak of the Bitter Zen sect, Sun Viewing Peak. Master Xuanji and the other 2, when the sun rises, the Sea of Clouds and Buddhist Light will appear, Master Xuanji said politely. Yin Zhao asked curiously, what exactly does the Buddhist Light look like? A Buddha with a golden halo will appear above the Sea of Clouds. The Buddha's face can be clearly seen. It's really a blessing for the Buddhist sect, Xian Ji said with some self-satisfaction. Yin Chang and the other 2 heard this and became even more interested. If they could really see it, it would be a good topic to talk about when they returned. Master Liao Wu and the Lan family's ancestor had indifferent expressions. Although several days had passed and they had already accepted the fact that Yun Chuzhou was dead, their mood was still somewhat depressed. As time passed, the sun slowly rose from the east. At this moment, someone exclaimed, "Quick, look! Buddha's light! Buddha's light! Oh my God, it's actually 7-colored Buddha's light. It's even rarer than the golden Buddha's light I saw before. It's really 7-colored Buddha's light. Oh my God, I never thought that I would be able to see 7-colored Buddha's light in my lifetime. It's simply like smoke coming from the ancestral grave." As 7-colored Buddha's light was too rare, the crowd couldn't care less about whether they would offend Yin Chang and the other 2 and started shouting excitedly. Yin Chang and the other 2 weren't in the mood to argue with the crowd. It was also their first time seeing the 7-colored Buddhist light. Xianji rolled his eyes, he fawned, "Masters, this Sea of Clouds Buddhist light was originally golden, but now it has turned into the 7-colored Buddhist light. It must be because the 3 masters have a deep affinity with Buddhism that we are fortunate enough to see such a wonderful scene." Yin Chang and the other 2 knew that Xianji was flattering them, but they still revealed a satisfied smile. Moreover, they also felt that Xianji might be right. The reason why the golden Buddhist light turned into a 7-colored Buddhist light was because of their arrival. The 3 of them could not help but feel excited and hurriedly knelt on the ground. Once the 3 of them knelt, the rest naturally could not stand and also knelt on the ground. As time passed, the scene in the distance became more and more magnified and clearer. Even the face of the Buddha statue could be seen clearly. Suddenly, someone exclaimed in disbelief, "Heavens, Heavens, that Buddha's face, why is it exactly the same as that lonely? The people did not pay too much attention to it before, and because of the distance, they did not see it clearly. Now that they heard that person's exclamation and looked carefully, they were all dumbfounded. They saw that the Buddha's face was actually exactly the same as the dead loneliness. How was this possible? Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 53:27, Lone was alive again at this moment. Someone slapped his thigh and said, I heard that Lone is the reincarnation of the son of Buddha. Could it be that what he said is true? Yes, I've heard of it too. If he is the reincarnation of the son of Buddha, then it makes sense. But, isn't he already dead? What do you mean dead? Since he is the reincarnation of the son of Buddha, then he has returned to his golden body. The more Yin Chang and the other two listened, the uglier their expressions became. They were confused, shocked, and a little terrified. If that Lone was really the reincarnation of the so-called Buddha and they had forced the Buddha to die, wouldn't they be punished by the heavens? The three of them immediately stood up. The others were intimidated by the pressure they were emitting and shut their mouths in embarrassment. The three of them stared at the Buddha's face that was getting clearer and clearer. It was indeed exactly the same as that Lone. However, the originally peaceful gaze of the Buddha had become cold and solemn, causing the three of them to feel even more terrified. The others also noticed the change in the gaze of the Buddha statue. The people who had originally stood up knelt on the ground once again. They did not dare to say anything as they silently chanted in their hearts, Little Lone Buddha, this has nothing to do with us. If you want to take revenge, go look for those 3 monks from the 10,000 Buddha Sacred Hall and that Xianji. Xianji's legs were also somewhat weak. He had often done some immoral things. As the saying went, a guilty conscience. Under the light of Buddha, he could not help but break out in cold sweat. Of course, the feelings of Master Liaowu and the Lan family's patriarch were, well, a little subtle. They knew that Lone was not a Buddha at all. He was not even a monk. Then, what was going on with this light of Buddha? Could it be that the little girl was not dead? But, how did she manage to control such a strange scene? This was too unbelievable. Master Liaowu pinched himself hard. After confirming that this was not an illusion, his nose could not help but feel a little sore. It was great that the little girl was not dead. The Lan family's patriarch slowly closed his eyes and slowly opened them. He had said that disasters would last for 1,000 years. That troublemaker would not die so easily. As time passed, the Buddhist light gradually faded until it disappeared. There was a dead silence on Sun Viewing Peak. Yin Chang and the other two's expressions were very ugly. They ignored Master Xuanji and walked down the mountain. Master Xuanji was frightened and uneasy. He didn't care about pleasing Yin Chang and the other two. He followed behind them silently. Before they reached the meeting hall, a disciple of the bitter Zen sect came to report in panic, Master, that Lone, Xianji suddenly had an ominous premonition in his heart. He shouted, What's wrong with Lone? Isn't he dead? No, he's alive again. Not only is he alive, but he's also sitting on the top of the Devil Refining Pagoda, asking you to go over and apologize. Everyone was stunned when they heard his words and then exploded. Oh my God, that Lone isn't dead. Could it be that the Buddhist light that appeared earlier revived him? It's possible. How else did he come out of the Devil Refining Pagoda? And he's sitting on the top of the pagoda? He's the reincarnation of a Buddha. Naturally, he won't die so easily. This time, Master Xuanji will be in big trouble. Xianji broke out in cold sweat. If it wasn't for the Buddhist light, he might not have believed the news of the reincarnation of a Buddha. But just now, he saw with his own eyes that Lone was inside the 7-colored Buddhist light. How could he not believe it? Yin Chang and the other two's expressions changed too. Could it be that Lone was really the reincarnation of the Buddha? Then, would he punish them too? Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 53:28 Didn't you see this penniless monk's Dharma idol? Master Liaowu and the Lan family's ancestor were naturally very happy. It seemed that the troublemaker really didn't die. However, it wasn't good to be too obvious, so the two could only suppress the joy in their hearts and prepare to see what that troublemaker wanted to do next. Xianji didn't want to go, but he couldn't not go either. He could only look at Yin Chang and the other two with a bitter face. "Three masters, what do you think?" Yin Chang said with a cold face, "Let's go and take a look." Hearing that, Xianji felt a little more at ease. He accompanied everyone to the Devil Refining Pagoda. From afar, everyone saw a small monk sitting on the top of the pagoda. It was Lonely Small Monk. He was sitting cross-legged with a Buddha bead in his hand. The sunlight happened to cover his back with a layer of halo, making people involuntarily associate him with the Buddha statue that appeared in the light. Everyone's knees suddenly felt weak, and they had the urge to kneel down. Xianji wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and took 2 steps forward. He said with a fierce expression, "Lone. Why are you sitting on the top of the pagoda? Come down quickly." The little monk Lone slowly opened his eyes and looked at Xianji with his bright eyes. He said indifferently, "Buddha enlightened this penniless monk in his dream. You have committed heinous crimes, and you are not worthy to be the sect master of the bitter Zen sect. You have already broken the lust rule. You have imprisoned several women as furnaces and cauldrons. You are truly a scum of the Buddhist sect." Xianji's head buzzed when he heard this. He roared angrily out of embarrassment, "Lonely. You are full of nonsense. You devil, you must have used some secret technique to escape from the Devil Refining Pagoda." The lonely monk said indifferently, "Devil? This penniless monk is the reincarnation of a Buddha. Buddha told this penniless monk in his dream that this penniless monk's Dharma idol would appear in the sea of clouds this morning. Didn't you see it?" Everyone immediately burst into a clamor when they heard that. Heavens, just as they thought, why did the light of Buddha suddenly appear? It turned out that it was the enlightenment of Buddha. It seemed that Lonely was really the reincarnation of a Buddha. If Lonely was the reincarnation of a Buddha, then what he said was true. Did Xianji really imprison a woman as a furnace? Nonsense, you are talking nonsense. You must have used some unspeakable means. It must be so. Men, take him down. Xianji shouted fiercely. Yun Chuzhou laughed lightly. "Xian Hui, Buddha enlightened me in my dream. He said that although you are a little narrow-minded, you are at least much stronger than this Xianji. Take your men to search now. If you find evidence, the sect leader of the bitter Zen sect will be yours." Xian Hui was stunned on the spot. He had always wanted to replace Xianji, but his skills were not as good as Xianji's, so he could only reluctantly submit to others. Now, after hearing Yun Chujia's words, he was ecstatic. He naturally knew that Xianji used a woman as a cauldron. After all, he had many spies. No matter how careful Xianji was, he would still leave traces. However, should he take this risk? Just as he was hesitating, he heard Lonely Little Monk sigh. "Xian Hui, isn't this what you wished for in front of Buddha? Are you lying to Buddha?" Xian Hui trembled. It seemed that Lonely was telling the truth. Otherwise, how would he know that he had prayed for this matter in front of Buddha? As Xian Hui was thinking, he caught a glimpse of Xianji's cold gaze. His heart sank. Xianji already hated him. If he was not eliminated, there would be endless trouble in the future. Moreover, the sect master of the bitter Zen sect should be changed. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.